Welcome, everyone, to Silas Grave Stories, where I share the kind of tales that might just make you double-check the shadows around you. Before we get started, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories that will stick with you long after they're over. And hey, quick question. What time is it where you are right now? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how many of you are listening in the dead of night. All right, let's get into tonight's story. It all started as a casual group chat conversation, the kind where memes, random inside jokes, and half-serious plans to hang out got tossed around. This time, though, someone actually followed through. Ethan was the instigator as usual. He was the self-proclaimed adventure guy of our group, always pitching ideas for hikes, road trips, or some outdoorsy escape. He was the type who kept a pair of hiking boots by the door, though none of us could recall the last time he actually used them. "All right, hear me out," he texted. "A secluded cabin in the woods. No Wi-Fi, no distractions. Just us, nature, and a week to unwind. Who's in?" At first, we all fired back with jokes. Mia replied, "Sounds like the setup for a horror movie." Liam quipped, "Do they at least have a PlayStation?" And I couldn't resist adding, "Define no distractions. Are we talking no phones? Because I'm not doing that." Ethan wouldn't let it go, though. He started spamming the group with pictures of this rustic hut he found online. Surprisingly, the place looked great. A small wooden cabin with a wide porch overlooking a pristine lake, all surrounded by towering pine trees. There was even a fire pit and a little dock stretching into the water. "It's perfect," Ethan insisted. "Split 4 ways, it's dirt cheap. It's got all the basics, but it's off the grid. Imagine the peace." Mia wasn't convinced. "Off the grid?" "Like no plumbing?" she asked skeptically. "It's got plumbing," Ethan assured her. "A little basic, but totally fine." Liam was the first to cave. "I mean, finals wrecked me. I could use a break. I'm in if everyone else is." Mia hesitated, but eventually gave in, adding, "Fine. But if I hear banjos or weird animal noises, I'm leaving." That left me. Everyone waited for my reply. It wasn't that I didn't want to go, it actually sounded fun. A little weird, sure, but fun. Plus, the group dynamic was solid. Ethan with his relentless energy, Mia with her sharp humor, Liam's laid-back vibes, and me, the one who usually kept the peace when Ethan and Mia inevitably started bickering. "All right," I typed. "Let's do it. But if the plumbing sucks, I'm coming back early." Ethan's excitement practically jumped through the screen. "Yes, let's lock it in." And just like that, the plan was set. We'd spend a week at the secluded cabin, far from school, stress, and everything else. Over the next few days, Ethan handled the booking and sent us all the details: address, instructions, and a list of things to pack. One note in the rental description stood out, though. Guests are encouraged not to wander past the tree line at night. Nature can be unpredictable after dark. Mia screenshotted it and dropped it into the chat with a sarcastic comment. What the hell does this mean?" Ethan brushed it off. "It means don't wander into the woods. Let's not overthink this." "Cool, cool, cool," Liam added. Not ominous at all. The week flew by, and soon enough we were packing our bags. On the day of the trip, Ethan's SUV became our chariot. The drive was filled with laughter, music, debates over who controlled the playlist, and wild guesses about what unpredictable nature could possibly mean. When we finally arrived, the cabin was even better than the pictures. The lake sparkled under the afternoon sun, and the air smelled like pine and earth. Ethan stepped out first, taking a deep breath. "It's perfect," he declared. Mia glanced around, her arms crossed. "Yeah, perfect for getting murdered." We all laughed, even her. And just like that, our vacation began. We unpacked quickly, each of us claiming a room in the cabin. There were 3 bedrooms and a pull-out couch in the living room, so naturally, Ethan, being the one who planned it all, called dibs on the master bedroom. Mia took the second one, Liam snagged the third, and I ended up with the pull-out. I didn't mind. The living room had the best view of the lake through the massive picture window. Check this out, Ethan said, popping open a cupboard in the small kitchen. It was stocked with mismatched plates and mugs, but what caught his attention was a box of old board games shoved in the corner. Monopoly Marathon later, he asked, holding up the battered box. No thanks, Mia replied. Friendships end over that game. Instead, we decided to explore. The cabin had more charm than expected, with little details like a carved wooden bear in the corner of the living room and an ancient fireplace that looked like it had been used for generations. Let's check out the lake, Liam suggested. We walked down to the dock, the wooden boards creaking under our steps. The water was crystal clear, and the sunlight reflected off its surface like a mirror. Ethan immediately took off his shoes and stuck his feet in. This is heaven, he said. Mia, however, stood at the edge of the dock scanning the tree line. Anyone else think it's weird how quiet it is? She asked. We paused, listening. She was right. The usual hum of birds or insects wasn't there, just the gentle lapping of water against the dock. It's peaceful, Ethan said. You're always looking for a reason to freak out. Just saying, Mia muttered, crossing her arms. After a while, we headed back to the cabin. As night fell, the temperature dropped quickly. Ethan got a fire going in the fireplace, and we settled into the living room with snacks and stories. The woods outside were pitch black now, the kind of dark you don't get in the city. At some point, Mia checked her phone and groaned. No signal. I hate this already. Relax, Liam said. This is what we signed up for. We spent the night laughing, arguing over the rules of Uno and sharing stories until one by one, we started drifting off to bed. I was the last one awake, staring out the big window in the living room. The moonlight reflected on the lake and everything seemed still. Then, just as I was about to head to the pull-out couch, I noticed something. A faint light flickered in the woods. At first, I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. But no, it was real. A pale, flickering glow moving slowly between the trees. I froze, my heart racing. Ethan. I whispered toward his room, but there was no response. The light stopped. Then it blinked out as if someone had just turned it off. I stood there for what felt like forever, waiting to see if it would come back. When it didn't, I told myself it was probably nothing, a trick of the moonlight maybe. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there. I stood frozen for a moment longer, staring at the spot where the light had disappeared. My mind was racing with possibilities, but I forced myself to breathe and step away from the window. It's nothing, I muttered under my breath. Just tired. I pulled out the couch and set up my makeshift bed, wrapping myself in the blanket from the stack Ethan had brought earlier. I turned off the last lamp and the room was plunged into darkness. The fire had burned low, casting faint orange glows that danced along the walls. The cabin creaked occasionally, the way old wooden buildings do, and the wind outside rattled the window panes. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on the sound of the lake lapping against the shore. But my mind wouldn't stop replaying that flickering light. What could it have been? A flashlight. Maybe someone else was out here, hiking or camping. It was a public area after all. That had to be it. I finally drifted off, but my sleep was restless. Dreams of shadows moving between the trees, soft whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, and the sound of crunching leaves just outside the cabin door. Then I woke up with a start. At first, I thought it was the lingering effects of the dream. But no, I was awake. The fire had completely died out and the room was freezing. I stayed still, listening. Something had woken me, but I couldn't figure out what. I glanced at the window, but all I saw was my own faint reflection. Then I heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the back door, the one leading to the small porch overlooking the woods. I sat up, my heart pounding. The sound was faint but deliberate. Someone or something was outside. I swallowed hard, glancing toward Ethan's room. Should I wake everyone? Or was I overreacting again? I stayed frozen on the couch, my blanket pulled tightly around me like it could somehow shield me from whatever was out there. The tapping continued for a few seconds, then stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I strained my ears, trying to catch any other sounds. Footsteps, rustling leaves, nothing. Just the faint hum of the wind outside and my own shallow breaths. Every instinct screamed at me to wake the others, but what if it really was nothing? The last thing I wanted was to scare everyone over some animal brushing against the cabin. Still, I couldn't bring myself to lie back down. My eyes darted between the window and the darkened doorway leading to the back porch. I cursed myself for not keeping the fire going. At least then I wouldn't feel so exposed in the dark. Minutes passed. Or maybe it was hours. It was hard to tell. My phone was on the coffee table, but I didn't dare reach for it, worried that the glow would give me away. Then, faintly, I heard it again. Tap. Tap. This time it was softer, almost hesitant, like someone was testing to see if I would respond. My stomach churned and I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I gripped the blanket tighter, my mind racing through possibilities. It had to be an animal, or the wind, or something explainable, didn't it? The noise stopped again, and the silence felt like it was pressing down on me. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Morning wasn't too far off. All I had to do was wait. But then, something new made my blood run cold. The faint sound of a door handle rattling. I shot up from the couch, my heart hammering. The back door wasn't locked. Ethan had gone out earlier to get firewood, and I wasn't sure if he had remembered to latch it. I stood there, paralyzed, staring at the darkened doorway. The rattling stopped, but now I couldn't ignore it. I grabbed the nearest thing within reach, a small metal desk lamp on the side table. It wasn't much, but it felt better than nothing. My hands were trembling, but I tried to convince myself it was just the cold. Step by step, I inched toward the darkened doorway leading to the back of the cabin. Each creak of the wooden floor made my heart lurch, but I kept going, driven by the need to know what or who was there. The faint rattle of the handle started again. I stopped, holding my breath. It was so subtle that if I hadn't been paying attention, I might have missed it. My pulse pounded in my ears as I edged closer to the kitchen, where the back door was located. The glow from the moonlight streaming through the small window above the sink cast eerie shadows across the room. The door handle gave one last, lazy jiggle before going still. I tightened my grip on the lamp and stepped forward, stopping just a few feet from the door. My mind screamed at me to run back to the others, but something made me stay. I reached out and flipped the porch light switch. The floodlight flickered to life, illuminating the small wooden deck outside. For a moment, I saw nothing. The light swayed gently in the wind, casting shifting shadows across the ground. Then I noticed it. Something moved, darting just beyond the edge of the light, disappearing into the darkness of the woods. I froze, unsure of what I had just seen. It was quick, low to the ground. Too fast to be a person, but larger than any animal I could think of in this area. The door suddenly creaked as if under pressure. My grip on the lamp tightened as I took a step back, staring at the handle. But it didn't move again. After a few tense seconds, I reached forward and slowly locked the door, my fingers fumbling over the latch. I backed away, my eyes darting toward the window over the sink, half expecting something, or someone to appear there. Nothing. I took a shaky breath and glanced toward the hallway leading to the others. I wanted to wake them, to tell them what had happened, but my mind kept going back to that shadowy figure. What if it wasn't done? I hurried down the hallway, my pulse racing, and pushed open the door to the room where Jamie and Alyssa were sleeping. They stirred as the light from the hallway spilled in, their faces groggy and confused. "What's going on?" Jamie asked, his voice thick with sleep. "There's something outside," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It was messing with the back door." Alyssa sat up, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean, something? Like an animal?" I shook my head. "I don't know. It wasn't just an animal, it felt off. I saw it move, but it was too fast to be a person, and it wasn't small enough to be a raccoon or anything." Jamie swung his legs off the bed and grabbed his hoodie from the foot of it. "Did you lock the door?" "Yeah, it's locked," I said, nodding quickly. "But I'm not sure it's enough." Alyssa was already putting on her shoes. We should wake up Mark. We moved down the hallway together and knocked on Mark's door. He opened it a crack, squinting at us. "What now?" he mumbled, clearly annoyed. "There's something outside," Jamie said. "We need to figure out what's going on." Mark sighed but stepped back to grab his jacket. "All right, but this better not be one of your pranks." The four of us gathered in the living room, huddled together as I explained what had happened. Jamie paced near the fireplace, his face thoughtful. Alyssa sat on the couch, clutching a blanket around her shoulders, and Mark leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So what do we do?" Alyssa asked, breaking the silence. Jamie stopped pacing. "We could check the cameras again. Maybe it caught something this time." Mark frowned. "Or we could wait until daylight and deal with it then. No point in getting ourselves freaked out over nothing." "It's not nothing," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Something was at the door, Mark. It wasn't just my imagination." Mark raised his hands in mock surrender. Okay, relax. Let's just think this through." Alyssa leaned forward, her eyes darting between the group. "We should call the local authorities. Even if it's nothing, it's better to be safe than sorry." Mark groaned. "What are we going to say? Hey, there might be a spooky shadow outside our rented cabin. They'll think we're nuts." Jamie shrugged. "Maybe, but if something does happen and we didn't call, that's on us. Besides, they're probably used to this kind of thing. People freak out in the woods all the time." I nodded. "I'll do it. I'll call." I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling slightly, and dialed the local sheriff's office. After a few rings, a gruff voice answered. "Sheriff's Department, Deputy Harris speaking." I swallowed hard and quickly explained the situation, trying not to sound paranoid. I described the noise, the figure outside, and the uneasy feeling we all had. Deputy Harris listened patiently, then said, "All right, I'll send someone to check on you folks. Stay inside, keep the doors locked, and don't go wandering around. Someone will be there within 30 minutes." I hung up and relayed the information to the group. "They're sending someone. We just need to wait." Mark snorted. "Great. Now we're officially the paranoid tourists. Better paranoid than dead," Alyssa shot back. We decided to stay in the living room together, huddling near the fire. The glow from the flames painted the room in flickering orange light, and every creak of the old cabin felt amplified in the tense silence. Jamie kept checking his phone, watching the clock. Alyssa sat close to me, her grip tight on the edge of her blanket. Mark, for all his skepticism, stood near the window, peeking through the curtains every so often. "Anything?" I asked. Mark shook his head. "Just trees and darkness." 15 minutes passed, then 20. Just as we were beginning to question whether the authorities were even coming, we saw headlights cutting through the woods. Relief flooded through me as a patrol car pulled up to the cabin. A tall, older man in a uniform stepped out, his flashlight slicing through the night. He approached the door and Jamie opened it cautiously. "Evening," the deputy said, his voice calm but authoritative. "I'm Deputy Harris. Heard you had some trouble out here." We quickly recounted the events, pointing to the back door where I'd seen the figure. The deputy nodded thoughtfully and stepped outside to investigate, motioning for us to stay put. A few tense minutes later, Harris returned. "Tracks in the dirt near the back door," he said. "Looks like someone's been lurking, but they're long gone now. Could have been a drifter or someone hoping the cabin was empty. You folks were smart to lock up." "So what do we do now?" Alyssa asked, her voice shaky. "I'll patrol the area tonight," Harris said. "But if I were you, I'd keep the doors locked and be extra cautious. If anything else happens, call us right away." After Harris left, the group was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. We stayed together the rest of the night, our earlier excitement for the trip replaced by a lingering unease. By morning, the woods seemed less intimidating, but the memory of the night lingered. Whoever, or whatever, had been out there might still be nearby.